In the first 12 or so videos, I've learned how to use printing function, variables, what the Python lists were and dictionaries, how to use them. Now, in the last couple of videos, I've been trying to put all this knowledge into practice. So, since I've already written a part of the code, which is the movie collection database, it is a good idea to take a pause and maybe take a look at what's been done so far, analyze how it works before I move on to the next part. So let's open the file which is my program, and the program, the source code is divided into sections, and the first section at the very top, which is marked with a hash, which is nothing but a comment ignored by Python. It's just information for somebody who is reading the program. That section is a section devoted to variables and data structures. Currently, I have only one data structure, which is the Python list, and it's an empty list created for the purpose of collecting elements, and those elements will be dictionaries, because dictionary seems to be the best data structure to collect information about the movie and store them as single elements of the list here. So the next function, the next section of the program is again this. There's a hash, that's comment. Function definitions. There's currently two functions in the program which do something very useful. I'm going to analyze that in a minute. And there's a third section of the program which is a code. So this is where the code begins. So what are my steps before I start analyzing what the program does at this particular stage of development? Let's see what the steps are. So the steps are created is to take user input, because each movie has certain information associated with it. We need to collect that information. That information will be stored, so I can actually move this around a little bit and take maybe all these lines 45 through 49 and delete them here and paste them over here. So in the code, what I want to do is to take user input information about the movie. I want to store that user information in the dictionary, and what I want to do, append the dictionary to the list. And let's just make a space here, because the first, so the lines here, these two lines actually do exactly what I want. So that is basically the sections of the program. Now let's go ahead and analyze step by step what is happening when the code is run. Let's start from the top, because this is where the Python is going to run the code. So when I run the code in the second terminal here, Python 3 and movie collection, let's analyze what happens when I hit enter line by line. Okay, so here's what's going to happen when I hit enter here. The first line is going to be ignored because that's just a comment. The second line says create a Python list, empty list. Let's call it movies. Then the next line of the code is also a comment, is going to be ignored. What follows is the definition of the function. The function name is create underscore movie underscore information. In the parentheses, there's nothing in there, so that indicates the function does not take any arguments. There's no information provided for the function to operate. It's just what follows in with this indentation. The body of the function is going to be executed, but not now. This is not going to be executed now because in order to run this code in the function must be called from within the source program, source code, by using its name. which is not happened. This is just a definition. So everything from here to there is going to be, for now, ignored, but it's sitting there waiting to be called. The next portion of this code is also function definition. That function definition is going to be at this stage ignored by Python interpreter, because in order to run what's indented, the body of the function, it needs to be first called from the source code, from the program, while being executed. So this is going to be all ignored up to line, pretty much. Then there's a bunch of comments from lines 36 to line 40. So everything in this code, as soon as I hit enter, will be ignored, except for the first line here, which is creating empty list called movies. And then the line 41 will be run. So that's the next line that would be run. But what does this line do? It says create movie information and empty parentheses. That is the name of the function. So from this point, the code is going to jump back here and run what the body of the function is. The first line in the function is just a doc string explaining what the function is supposed to do. Could be skipped, omitted, but it's a good practice to do it. Now, the first line in the code is print, provide the following information. And the next, we create a variable called movie underscore title, and we will expect the user to provide the input. And we tell the user what that input should be. It's going to be movie title. Recall that anything that input function is going to collect from the user is always in the form of a string and assigned to a variable. Let's run the code and see that. So we will not see how the Python is creating the movie list. It's kind of in the background. We won't see it, but we will definitely see the first line. Provide the following information, colon, followed by movie title. Let's run it and see what happens. Exactly. So since we call the function from the code, now we would need to provide the first information. So when I provide the movie Alien and hit enter, it'll be stored in the movie title variable. Let's do that. The next is the variable director, which will have assigned something to it. And again, we expect the user to provide the input director's name. I provide Ridley Scott. And what follows is similar thing. This time it's a variable year that is going to collect a year from the user, which, remember, it's always a string. Even though we put the number here, this is actually a string. Everything is string unless I change it into integer. Now, after year, there's a parent rating, R, length of the movie, 1 hour 57 minutes, and genre. And in this particular string, I'm going to provide a list of words separated with commas. So it's a horror movie and sci-fi. Now, what happens when I hit enter next? The next command or instruction inside the function create movies, which we are right now, says, hey, create a variable movie underscore info, and there's a collect movie info, and that is the name of the next function I have here. And inside this, the function expects to receive the arguments, the movie title, which is stored in this variable, which is basically Alien, expects to receive the director's name, which is stored in this variable, which in my case is Ridley Scott, and so on and so forth. So now if I hit enter, that is called, and what we see at the very end, so what happens, let's analyze the code. So once we provide all those information, all those pieces of information stored in the variables here, something is going to happen to those variables. And inside this function, so we jump from here in the code, we stopped here, we moved to this function, and what this function does is taking those arguments and creating a dictionary out of them. So we have a key title, which will store movie title, director with director's name, and so on and so forth. But at the very end of that function, it needs to go backward, jumped from. So it says, hey, I've done my job, and I created a dictionary called movie info, which stores all those pieces, key value pairs, and I'm now returning to you who called this function. And who called the function? Well, the call was made from within this function, create movie information. So once the return object is stored in movie info, so that's the dictionary now, which collects all those pieces of information. The next and the last line in the function we called initially from the code is append to movie list that movie info. So that element, which is the dictionary containing all those pieces of information about Alien movie, is now stored in the list. So once this is done, there's no return statement in the create movie. So remember, so this is a definition, so the program now skips and goes back to basically the place where the call was made. The call was made from here, line 41, create movie information. And once it's done and stored in the movie list, I just printed the whole list movies like that. Obviously, we can do it better. I can basically create a better way to display that. So let's assume that there's more than one element, that I created more than one movie, which I'm going to actually tackle tomorrow. And if that is the case, so let's just say I have more of those. The way to display list elements is a loop for, let's go for. Now, let's call the variable movie, because we're going to be displaying elements of the movies list. So for movie in movies, that's the list we created. For now, it's just a one element. Actually, there's nothing because I need to run the code again. I need to create it. I'll create just one. Now we do colon, since there are multiple elements and in the dictionary, and the dictionary itself is one element, which is now represented by the movie keyword. So for that element, for movie, for key and value in this element I'm displaying right now, which will be the first movie or first list element, and I need to use items, as you remember from the previous video. I will display print, and I'm gonna use formatted printing. So I'll use F keyword, and inside the quotes I am going to use a braces. So that will replace basically those variables. I will have, so the first will be just a K, which is key in the dictionary, followed by colon and another variable, which is the value inside. But I want the key to be at least, let's just say 14 characters long. So this is where the K, sorry. So this is my braces. Inside the braces, I'm going to put what is represented by current key in the dictionary, followed by colon, meaning how many characters do you want for that key to be displayed. Let's make it minimum 14 characters. Even if it's smaller, it's going to be still 14 characters to give us a nice space here, followed by actual colon, and followed by space and the variable. Let's run the code. So save the code right now and clear my screen and run it again. Movie title, Alien, Ridley Scott, year 1979, parents rating R, length 1.57 hours, and it's horror / sci-fi. Lovely. So that was just the one element. Now the next task I want to tackle is how to actually add more elements, and more importantly, how to store them so that I don't have to do it all over again every time I run my code. The system should remember what movies I've already created in my database, and that's going to be the next tasks I'm going to tackle.